reading through so many letters from my childhood best friend, and just getting so many very clear understandings, readings of how I identified, who I identified myself as, who I was being, what I was expecting of her, what felt unfair to me, and what now I see was unfair of me. People tend to like really poo-poo childhood relationships and say, you know, especially when they involve trauma, and say things like, you know, you guys were just kids and let it go. And ultimately you do want to let it go, but not before you process it in a very healthy way. And no, they're not just childhood relationships. Like those first friendships that you have, those first relationships, those people, that person was everything to you. Like everything. It's before you, it's like kind of your first attachment outside of your parents, you know, before you're mature enough to have boundaries or to understand like, this is you, that's me. You know, like you're just one unit, you're one entity, you don't know anything else. Like they're everything to you. And just to honor that you felt that way, and honor that, you know, when that friendship did eventually break or shift into something else, because it always does, right? It shifts or it changes or it's done. That was equally a heartbreak, you know, in comparison to anything that you would have ever experienced in your adulthood, if not more traumatic, because you didn't have the tools to process it. And just gifting yourself the compassion around that, like, yeah, wow, that meant a lot to me, and that really sucked. And sending yourself love and compassion. So I'm just reading a letter from my first kind of deep love, and then being faced with this card, you know, and burning this card, and like feeling still a level of residual attachment, and going, wow, I'm really glad I'm doing this. I'm really glad I'm doing this, you know, because you put so much of that in the back of your mind, or you just allow it to sit and simmer in your subconscious, you know, not realizing it's there until you're being faced with really, really letting it go. And yeah, just like my heart is aching like right now, even thinking about it. And this was like a relationship I had 20 years ago. So interesting, because in all my writings, like growing up, there was a very heavy focus on my faith, my relationship with God. And you know, that never changed. I've always had a focus on my faith, but my belief systems changed. And it's so interesting how adamant and judgmental I was around sex, around sensuality, around sexuality, and the programming that I had from a very young age, that sex was wrong, sex was bad. And of course, you know, one can argue that the programming was that sex was wrong outside of marriage, but I really didn't have that defined clarification, because the mind doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? The mind doesn't, sure, it'll create reasons and excuses, but ultimately it does, you know, have blanket right and wrong for things. It has a blanket, you know, sex is wrong, or sensuality is wrong, or relationships are wrong. And the irony is that, you know, like many of you, I've had a lot of beautiful sexual encounters, experiences in my life, and done a lot of beautiful plant medicine, which you know, the United States would perhaps consider not okay. And I lovingly and with honor look back at those parts of me that were judgmental of myself and my own choices, realizing, of course, that those parts were based on a lot of fear of my salvation, fear of that participating in any of those acts would distance me from my source, my creator, my God. I'm still needing to do some clearing around judging myself for judging others at that time, like just being a very opinionated, judgmental identity. So I just read a letter from somebody, in my experiences when I was 15, so 1995, that I had dated for like over the summer. And he was already graduated, I think. And this letter was, him kind of professing his love to me and letting me know that I was the only one he wanted and that he wanted to be with me, and he basically wanted to commit to me. And I really felt those parts of me like inside coming up, with those beliefs somewhere deep inside going, yeah, right, like, why? There's parts of me that go, I didn't have any money. I'm 15 years old. I didn't have any money. Okay, I have like a summer job, but you know what I'm saying? I didn't have a career. I wasn't sleeping with this person. In fact, we weren't even like super heavily making out. Like I hadn't even done that yet at 15. We were basically just like kissing and fondling each other. Super innocent stuff. I didn't have a place for him to live or anything to offer him, like as far as like worldly possessions or worldly things, and didn't even have sex to offer him, yet this person was like wanting to give me his whole heart and wanting to commit to me. And it feels, I like really had to witness my resistance to that, like my resistance to, oh, that wasn't real. And his and like wanting to invalidate his feelings weren't real. And in the process of doing this, releasing, and I could feel myself still releasing now, it feels very healing. To remember this kind of love exists before we got trapped in this game of having to be a certain way, having to look a certain way, having to provide certain things, having to have all of these compatibilities figured out in order to quote unquote like attract, someone to want to commit to us in this same way that we were so willing to openly commit to when we were young and weren't really tainted, with all of these other opinions of what had to be so in order to be an attractive mate, if that makes sense. I am sure that I haven't thrown a single letter away in my entire life. Somehow I saved just a super shit ton of high school letters, like the dramatic kind where he said, she said, and oh my God, blah, blah, blah. I like him, you like her, what are we gonna do? Lots of drama, lots of talking behind people's backs, but also lots of like cutesy wootsy cute shit, like writing back and forth on one sheet of paper to your best friend and passing it to their lockers. Like, when did that stop? I mean, I get that it had to stop when we didn't have lockers, but there's an energy there that I would love to connect to, this energy of just playfulness in friendships, playfulness in general. And I know I have that, and I know, like, my friends will say that I'm one of the most playful people they know, but I want to feel that all the time. Okay, I'm willing to admit there's this theme of me, at least in like the high school era, of really, really liking someone and then them finally asking me out and then us going together and me getting super terrified and breaking up with them and them dating like my friends and me getting really pissed off at my friends for dating them when I'm the one that like decided not to be with them. And it was not okay for my friends to be with this person that I decided I didn't want to be with. So I'm gonna do some clearing around that. Trauma.
So this is like a church, like a flyer, and it's like a whole dialogue conversation from our old exchange student and myself, apparently during church, about who's asking us to the dance.
You know what I miss? Reading these probably 100 high school notes. I miss the simplicity in friendships. You know, it wasn't about the expectation of like, you pick me up from the airport, or you float me money if I'm having a hard time, or me coming over and, you know, helping you do A, B, and C, or finding time, you know, to spend with each other. It was just, we had it. We had the time. We were put in an environment where we got to see each other every day and nurture this energy of connection, playfulness, fun. And it just makes me want to recreate that. Maybe that's why I love to host events so much where we get to connect. And maybe that's why I do really love communal living. God, like, when did we even get away from that? I mean, tribal living, yeah, is communal living, the same idea. Like, you not only get to see your family every day, you get to see your friends every day. Like, how fucking healthy is that? That's so healthy. It's so healthy.